However, as we saw at the recent Super Bowl, not all fake returns are welcome. Here are 10 times WWE faked a popular wrestler's return. Number 10. Goldberg. When Kevin Owens was scheduled to defend his Universal Championship against Bill Goldberg at 2017's Fastlane pay-per-view, Kevin Owens' BFF Chris Jericho held a festival of friendship to celebrate his and Kevin's mutual admiration society. One of the festival's highlights saw Chris Jericho call out Goldberg, threatening to beat him down. Instead of Goldberg, Jericho had Dwayne Gill aka Gilberg enter the ring for a beatdown. Gilberg had impersonated Goldberg during the Attitude Era when Goldberg worked for rival WCW. The surprise appearance didn't go over well, and on this evening, Kevin Owens attacked Jericho, ending their friendship for good. Number 9. CM Punk. The WWE has teased CM Punk returns not once, but twice. The first occurred in 2013, when Paul Heyman's new charge Curtis Axel battled Chris Jericho during the 7th June 2013 episode of SmackDown. Jericho was looking to snap Axel's win streak and appeared to be on his way to victory when CM Punk's Cult of Personality played, causing Jericho to lose focus and turn his attention away from Axel. Axel rolled Jericho up for the win, and Jericho would face Punk a week later at 2013's Payback pay-per-view. Number 8. Triple H. In 2016, Seth Rollins began feuding with Triple H after Hunter betrayed him for Kevin Owens during a fatal 4-way for the Universal Championship. In 2017, Rollins announced his intention to compete in the Royal Rumble, but Rollins was forced to wrestle Sami Zayn on Raw to determine who would win the spot in the Rumble. After 15 minutes of exciting action, Rollins seemed to have a win in hand after he hit the pedigree on Zayn. Then, Triple H's music played, distracting Rollins enough for Sami Zayn to get his wits about him. Zayn took advantage of Rollins' confusion, rolling him up and taking Rollins' chance to compete in the Rumble. This fake out only heightened Rollins' disdain for Helmsley, as well as the fans' disdain for the WWE employing this tired ploy again. Number 7. Jeff Hardy. When Jeff Hardy decided to take time off from the WWE, the company rode him out by having CM Punk defeat him in a career versus career match on SmackDown. The following week, Jeff Hardy's music played and Jeff paraded down to the ring. Or was it someone else dressed like the enigmatic one? Yes, it was. It turns out CM Punk decided to taunt the fans by appearing as the WWE Universe's favorite Hardy Boy. CM Punk 1, Jeff Hardy fans 0. No word on whether Mike Adamle thought that this was the real Jeff Hardy. Number 6. The Rock. 2011 saw The Miz scheduled to defend the WWE Championship against John Cena at WrestleMania 27, a tremendous opportunity for the Master of the Skull-crushing finale. The problem was that the match was eclipsed by The Rock guest hosting the event, and the Great One's War of the Words with John Cena. Suddenly, fans wondered if The Miz was just an afterthought for the Showcase of Immortals main event. However, The Miz wasn't about to play an extra on the grandest stage of them all, so he gave John Cena and the WWE fans a lesson in craftiness. During the 14th March 2011 episode of Raw, The Rock's music played during John Cena's match against Alberto Del Rio. The fans went berserk as The Rock entered the ring, hitting a rock bottom on Cena. However, when The Rock ripped off his bald cap, the fans realized the skillful impersonator was actually The Miz. The Miz's subterfuge was arguably the highlight of his WrestleMania program with Cena, as he was soon overshadowed by the pending Cena vs Rock rivalry. Number 5. The Underfaker. In 1994, The Undertaker experienced the first of what would be many apparent demises, being beaten to a pulp during a casket match against Yokozuna at that year's Royal Rumble. Behind the scenes, Mark Calloway's back was hurt and he needed time off, hence the WWF quote-unquote killing him off. However, in professional wrestling, kayfabe deaths are as permanent as comic book deaths, and the WWF was already planning The Undertaker's return. The WWF began reporting Undertaker sightings from fans around the nation. Was The Undertaker somehow back from the dead? The WWF did what any respectable business would do and brought in Leslie Nielsen and George Kennedy of the Naked Gun film series, sending them to get to the bottom of the mystery. After WrestleMania 10, Ted DiBiase proclaimed he'd found The Undertaker and introduced him on WWF TV. This version, however, was played by wrestler Brian Lee. However, something wasn't quite right with the $1 Million Man's story. The Undertaker's longtime manager Paul Bearer cried a foul, and a match was scheduled at 1994 SummerSlam to determine who was The Undertaker and who was The Underfaker. Although the angle was planned as a long-term feud, the SummerSlam match proved to be so boring that the angle was dropped immediately after. Number 4. CM Punk Part 2. No one runs the same idea into the ground like the WWE, doing so until the fans wonder if the WWE writers use a magic 8-ball to determine their storylines. Either way, on the 4th of March 2014, WWE fans got screwed over when the WWE teased a CM Punk return during an episode of Raw held in Chicago. You may recall at the time that Punk had walked out on the WWE due to several concerns with the company, including creative direction, payments allegedly owed on merchandise, and questions about the medical care he received. Fans cheered when Punk's music played, happy that one of their favourite wrestlers had returned, and done so to his fans in Punk's hometown. Unfortunately, what they got was Punk's former manager Paul Heyman. If this wasn't bad enough, Heyman cut a scathing promo on the fans, blaming them for Punk's absence. There is a finger to point around here. There is someone to blame. There is someone to hold accountable why CM Punk just wouldn't put up with it anymore. And ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time where you have to risk your own job security and point the finger of blame. And that tonight in this very ring, I point the blame for the fact that CM Punk is not here tonight. I point that finger at each and every single one of you. Needless to say, Heyman's comments weren't well received, and it's insane how the WWE abused its trust with its fans over a very sensitive issue. Number 3. The Undertaker. Recently, the chances of The Undertaker appearing at a weekly TV show are lower than the WBF returning. Plus, if The Undertaker was ever going to appear, it would be hyped for weeks on end. Nevertheless, the SmackDown Live crowd thought that they were being treated with a rare appearance of the dead man in September 2017. The lights went down with the familiar bell tolls, and out came the Phenom, head to toe in his familiar entrance attire. However, something was a little off. Taker was walking with a little more spring in his step. The lights came on only to reveal Dolph Ziggler dressed as him, and it was followed by a chorus of boos. Number 2. Razor Ramon and Diesel. We've covered this one before, but it's so outrageous it bears repeating. After Scott Hall and Kevin Nash left the WWF for WCW, the WWF announced that Razor Ramon and Diesel were returning to the WWF. Fans and wrestling insiders were puzzled at how this was possible, with WCW panicking when they realized Hall and Nash weren't under a binding contract, and each man would get a hefty signing bonus. Over on Raw, Jim Ross introduced Razor Ramon and Diesel, wrestlers Rick Bogner and Glenn Jacobs. Both men were dressed for the part and had the same entrance music, but the physical resemblance was superficial, and the fans knew they'd been had. Despite the fans' disgust, the WWF actually kept both men around for several months. And number 1. Bret Hart. One of wrestling's greatest fake returns happened on Raw the night after the infamous Montreal Screwjob at the 1997 Survivor Series. Thanks to the rise of the internet, many fans knew the Hitman was going to WCW. Nonetheless, the WWF teased that Hart would appear on Raw. Newly crowned WWF champion Shawn Michaels stood in the ring with Hunter Hearst Helmsley when the Excellence of Execution's entrance music played. In his memoir Hitman, Bret Hart recalls how Vince McMahon had promised not to tarnish his character after he left the WWF. True to form, McMahon ignored the promise and had a midget dressed as the Hitman enter the ring, with HBK and Triple H mocking him by saying they always knew the Hitman was short on talent, charisma, and stature. Well guys, there you have it. 10 times the WWE faked a popular wrestler's return. There are definitely a few more, so would you like to see a part 2? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.